Hi, welcome to the podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start conversation on Unit 6, Education, Nation Building, State and Ideology. And our topic of discussion is Nation Building in India. In post-colonial societies like India, the national identity and nationhood are constructed around colonial history. The period of colonialism and the colonial exploitation accompanying it become the mega narrative to define our national identity. During the colonial as well as the post-colonial time, there were institutions and policies to transform the natives into citizens. During the freedom struggle, this citizenship building exercise became necessary for attaining freedom. For Kumar, nation building assumes a dominant position among the aims of children's education. History is central to the maintenance as well as the creation of a modern nation state. Its role is pertinent in the process of nation building. The pedagogic and learner-centered perspectives take a subservient position to the nation building project. History faces more strain of teaching about nation building than other subjects. The process and the prospects of inculcation of national consciousness becomes paramount in history. In the Indian case, knowledge of freedom struggle plays a key role in socializing the younger generation into attitudes and beliefs that are upheld nationally. In the schools, their mindset is prepared in a predefined way. Kumar examined the rival ideologies of nationalism into which schools attempt to socialize the young. And in doing so, he depicted the ways in which history is used for indoctrination of specific ideologies. Kumar emphasizes the process of selection and representation to understand the nation building project of the state. For Kumar, it is important to see how things are represented to design the young minds. Our education system serves the wider national objective of nation building, and for this reason, from a very early age, children are socialized into national legacies. Education from the early stages is deliberately used to pursue the nation building agenda. Knowledge of the past is an important medium that ensures acculturation, socialization, and framing the national identity of the future generation. It is for this reason that schools take on the ideological role. The knowledge of the past becomes pertinent for a construction like nation state. The anti-colonial movement as well as the freedom struggle play a key role in socializing younger generation into loyal citizens. The socialization through the formal learning at school plays a pertinent role as the latter leads to the formation of socially articulated knowledge. The past plays an important role in shaping people's attitudes and behaviors. It can therefore be said with confidence that the representations of the past serve as mental maps in shaping their responses to present day situations. Kumar explains the way the freedom struggle is used for consolidating the nation states of India and Pakistan. Though the narratives of both the countries were the same, yet they have been projected differently. The systems of education deliberately cultivates the characteristics of loyal citizens in children. The curriculum, pedagogy, and the entire education system are geared towards socializing the young into an approved national past. The national past, taken as the main discourse by the education system, is approved by the state. The state is the guiding force first for nation building and then for its sustenance. The school uses the officially approved knowledge of the nation's past to inspire children to fulfill their roles as obedient citizens. History plays a major role in fashioning young minds into the roles of the citizens. Kumar explains how both the nations understood the same event of partition in different light because of their nation building project. Both India and Pakistan faced 1947 independence followed by the partition, yet their perception of it varies. India looks at 1947 as a great achievement which followed arduous struggle, though because of partition it was also accompanied by a terrible sense of loss and sadness. While Pakistan treats 1947 as the formal beginning of its nation state. The same event of partition is understood in different lights. Indian texts treat 1919 to 1947 as Gandhian era of the nationalist struggle, as Gandhi transformed the nature of this movement. Gandhi's personality, activities, and ideologies are highlighted in this part. Indian textbook represent this personality and ideas. Children are informed about his principles of non-violence and truth. Kumar deduces that the way knowledge about the past is selected, reconstructed, and represented in the textbooks for school children depicts how a common past acquires distinct versions under two systems of education. The process and perception of nation building in India and Pakistan differs considerably. These issues depict the relationship between the national ideology and textbooks. The pursuit of nation building is turned into an ideology and education is seen as the primary instrument for propagating it. The ideology of nation building became the most important goal of the education system. As Kumar puts it, after independence, the heuristic method of teaching, emphasizing the child's freedom to negotiate meaning, were not given any weight. All education commissions underscored nation building as an important objective that even downplayed the ideology of manual work proposed by the Gandhi. The wider aim was supposed to be of nation building and all the other cultural, educational or economic facets were sidelined to fulfill it. The nation building symbolized national development. In history textbooks, the decision to mention a name or an event or overlook it is guided by this paramount national ideology. In Kumar's words, it reflects the politics of the memory. The difference between the Indian and the Pakistani understanding of freedom struggle is essentially in the choice of the events they mention. Certain details and certain events are given more space and time in one story, while the same one cannot be ignored in the other. This tendency, which Kumar refers to as politics of mention, increases in the coverage of events that took place in the last 17 years of the struggle. The ideology of nation building in the last decades becomes more compelling in both the Indian and the Pakistani textbooks. Though the attainment of freedom is common to both the nations, yet its understanding varies. As Kumar puts it, in the Indian case, the story would explain why India was divided, while the Pakistani story would explain how the division was made to happen. It is because of this nation building ideology that the same bodies of the facts are present differently in the two nations. Both the nation states want to foster nationalism with the help of education. Education carries the heavy burden of nation building project on its shoulders. This task is to celebrate the struggle and eventual triumph of secularism. Partition was a trouble for them as it signifies religious separatism too. For this reason, they marginalized this period of nationalist struggle. In the Indian case, the narrative of the freedom struggle as well as the history itself comes to an end in 1947. It only talks of some events associated with the independence, which includes the making of constitution, the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, integration of the princely states, and the beginning of the 5-year plans. For Pakistan, partition signifies the birth or creation of the new state. The freedom implies not just freedom from the British but also the creation of Pakistan. It symbolizes the genesis of Pakistan. History is seen as a means of ideological indoctrination. Through the study of the past, the earlier anomalies are kept alive and are fostered. In India, the narrative of freedom basically revolves around the tension between the secular and communal forces. This tension becomes relevant to define India's national identity and its secular nature. History cannot be simply understood as the memory of the past, as the politics of mention always operates and guides it. Memory of the past is not about reality, rather, it represents a reconstruction of past reality in ways that nourish the self. In India, the debate on history textbooks focused on the distinction between secular and communal perspectives. This politics of history allows ideological indoctrination to become the purpose of discussing the past. The idea of the nation state, national language, and the national culture favors the dominant culture and does not represent minority cultures. They remain suppressed in this national politics. Surely the citizenship status is also given importance by the nation state and becomes important for the sustenance of nation building project. The feeling of patriotism is important in citizens for the concept of nation state to exist. This nation state exists on the idea of the homogeneous citizenship. This homogenization, however, subjugates the minority culture and their rights. The minority culture and the minority rights are sacrificed for the national honor and integrity. For Mahajans, the nation state unfolds the culture of the dominant sections and the devalues and marginalizes minority cultures. The minority cultures exist on the fringes of national political life, which largely believes in the liberal ideals of homogeneous citizenship. The minority community is culturally marginalized within the liberal nation states. The homogenizing tendencies of the state do not favor all the cultures and are in consonance only with the powerful sections of the society. Mahajan makes the point that the minorities are disadvantaged in the context of the nation state and the nation building project. The educational policies, educational structure, educational curriculum, and pedagogy play an active role in this ideological control over people. The state attempts to unite the diverse groups within its territory to evolve a national culture. This national culture is manifested in various forms. The nation state adopts a national language, interprets its history, specifies certain kinds of academic curricula, identifies the medium of instruction, declares public holidays, selects national heroes, and adopts certain rituals for ceremonial occasions as symbols of its national identity. In all these processes, certain kinds of selection, representation, and sustenance of the national symbols happen. This national culture, which the state tries to inculcate in all its citizens, is not entirely neutral. It tends to express the culture of the dominant community. The minority culture is not expressed in the national ethos. More than that, it marginalizes them in the public arena and devalues their cultural practices. Therefore, the policies and the practices of the nation building project result in the gradual erosion and disintegration of minorities' culture and only favors the dominant cultures. The equal rights of political participation or the citizenship status have not dismantled the structure of dominance and subordination in society. Assimilation into the national mainstream distances them from the culture of their own community. It devalues their culture. To secure a job, for instance, one has to master the national language. In our country, in certain instances, communities are marginalized as a small but dominant minority controls national resources. It is the new minority of modern and modernizing elites which exercises hegemony over national life, which disadvantages large sections of the population, not by devaluing their culture but by denying them equal opportunity and access to the available resources. It is not just the cultural identity which is at stake, but more than that, it is the social and economic disadvantage which they face. The project of nation building never wants minority identity to go against the prevalent idea of national identity. The national identity expresses itself in the political cultural ethos of the minority, which remains shrouded in the national state's macro ideology of modernization and development. Here we wind up this conversation, and thank you so much for choosing this podcast.